You're listening to the Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. I'm Alan Autry, and always so honored and humbled to have you with us today on what we call Manic Monday. It was a moniker that guest host, well, he's no longer a guest host. He's a member of the family. Bullet Bob Leone.
Thank you.
Welcome, Bullet.
Thank you.
Tagged the show Manic Monday, and if you judge it by the pre-show, folks, we've had a lot of fun before the show. I don't know how we're going to do during the show. Got a lot of heavy subjects to go over. You know, the news is what it is. Sometimes it presents itself in a uplifting fashion. Not often, right, Bobby?
Not really.
Really?
Not today.
And sometimes
you have to search for the good stuff.
You really do. It's out there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, close to the top, if not at the top of the news out there, is this horrible tragedy in Buffalo. 10 people killed by a young, and you have to say it, white male, because all the media, you know, it's white male. Make sure you underscore that. White male supremacist. And just an egregious act. First of all, our prayers go out to the family and friends of the victims. It's just a horrible thing. I walked into a grocery store in Buffalo, Bobby, and opened fire, I guess, pre-planned. The man did, obviously, the young fella, mental health issues to go way back.
Yes.
The fella's name is Peyton S. Gendron.
Gendron? Yeah.
18 years old. Man, it's rough.
Yeah. Apparently this was, I want to say nothing new, because he had been previously evaluated a year earlier for a threat against his high school, was what I read. And they put him in a psychiatric hold for a day and a half or something and released him because he was making threats at that point last year against the folks at his high school.
That's a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah, kind
how
of.
How did you miss that?
Yeah, well, there's some people that are pretty upset about the fact that was missed, or at least it wasn't followed up on prior to, obviously, this thing that he did over the weekend.
Right.
So,
and just again, horrible tragedy. And if you all listen to the show or watch the show since its inception, you kind of know where I stand on this thing. It's horrible. I don't believe that there is a certain race that has a market on hate against another race. I think it's out there in hate is hate, and hate is going to eventually do terrible things. In this case, ended up in taking of lives. But one thing that is absolutely predictable is you're going to get these folks that want to politicize it for their own political gain. And just as it could be predicted, like you could say, hey, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. You got folks on the woke left just jumping like starving dogs at a meat house to blame every Republican, Fox News, that they're responsible for this tragedy. I tell you, don't they know that people see through this? Most people say.
Well, I would hope that they know people see through this, but I don't
they have any shame?
Well,
is Liz Cheney, and I used to like Liz Cheney somewhat. I thought she was level-headed. Did you hear the comment she made?
Yeah.
What is wrong with that?
Blaming the congresswoman from New York for her rhetoric that supposedly
I'm sure Stefanik
contributed to this kid's wackiness and his hatred and all of this kind of stuff.
And is there anything in his manifesto that said Representative Stefanik?
No.
Stefanik,
yes, that's who it was. Yeah.
Made me do this.
No.
Or Fox News made me do this. Quite the opposite. You enlightened me that I guess in the manifesto
he named Fox News as one of the bad guys in this whole thing.
The ones that should go down.
Yeah.
As a next target.
Yeah, he was not.
But
he was not
my
happy
goodness, folks, let the families bury their beloved, their family members before you start politicizing. You haven't even had the funeral services yet. And they're out there just going ape doo-doo over this to try to, and then you look at it, folks. No, it doesn't. Political, that's why I became an independent. The politics in this country, Bob, we went through the 60s together as young teenagers. We saw a country divided because of the Vietnam War. But you also saw Republicans and Democrats trying to work together. There was nothing. There was racial riots, absolutely, but not the attempts to demonize a race. In fact, one of our heroes, Martin Luther King, was the one that was out there going, we have to have a colorblind society, and even referred to his premonition about his own death,
Yes.
saying, quote, maybe one of our sick white brothers is going to end my life. But how he phrased that, sick white brothers. He says that now. The Democratic Party, who used to be an icon, he would be kicked out of the club.
Wouldn't be a part of that anymore.
Isn't it sick? To me, it's sickening.
Well,
it's just sickening.
We've gone down a long, ugly road, that's for sure. And then when you still have the media perpetrating the narrative, and they control all of the left controls the media, that narrative just keeps getting pounded into people's minds. And we talked earlier before the show, if you tell somebody something long enough and hard enough and vehemently enough, and you really believe it, eventually those folks are probably going to start believing it. Well, it must be true.
Well, Thomas Sowell, I quote him a lot. He said that very thing. He said some things are true because they can demonstrably be proven to be true. Other things are accepted as true because they've just been repeated. The statement has been repeated so often.
Yeah.
And it's like what you're saying here. I mean, you see these folks on I call it the WFL, not football, the woke far left. The WFL, of which it looks like Liz Cheney is a member of it now. There's a lot of hate in that woman's heart.
Something's going on.
Something's going on there. But, when the fellow Daryl Brooks, in November 2021, an African-American, drives his car plows through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, killing 5 white people, elderly white people. He had a history of posting anti-white, comments, rhetoric on the social media. I didn't get up and say, it's Black Lives Matter that made him do that. It's Louis Farrakhan made him do that. And more recently, you had this fellow Frank James, 60-year-old black man, steps on a subway in Brooklyn, mows down 10 white people. A miracle nobody was killed. He's trying to kill them. I didn't spray the race card saying, here it is, black people, black racist, nationalists, black nationalists are hunting down white people to kill them. And then you have this latest thing of the Milwaukee Bucks at their party, watch party for the basketball game. This black, it's mostly black on black, it's white. You don't hear that talked about. This epidemic of violence, it only matters, like you said. They wait. They say absolutely nothing about the horrific nature of these murders until it's a white person. And boy, they hit the jackpot. If it's a white supremacist, they can find something online. And then, you never, it's everywhere.
But Haas, it fits the narrative. If it doesn't fit the narrative, then there's nothing to be said. If it fits the narrative, if it checks off all of the appropriate boxes, now you got a story.
But do they think, they meaning this woke far left, and I put in this, okay, who's the woke far left? I put in Joe Biden. I believe Joe Biden was more radical than any of us thought he was, has been his whole life. But I think he's a willing participant in this crazy CRT loving world, this no borders loving world, this leading from behind militarily world, this big government, onerous tax, all this stuff. He loves it in that wheelhouse. But his advisor, Susan Rice, who you never hear from, she can have plausible deniability and all this junk. But this the squad, this crazy far left ideology that swept all through our institutions. I think you see the polls, and you see what it looks like is going to happen in the midterms. And you see that the demonization of the police, defund the police after the George Floyd tragedy. You see to blame all policemen because of what this one sick dude did, that you just defund all the police. You see they're out there saying that you should teach our children to be racist, that they're either part of an oppressed group or they're an oppressor at birth. Nothing can change that. They see that how that's not going over, and yet then they have this issue that the only murders that matter is if it's a white person on a black individual. And in particular, it's a jackpot if it's a police officer or a white supremacist that does that. Then they just go and try to get. Can't they see that the people are saying, look, we see through this?
Well, I think so. I hope so. In fact, I read a poll, it's been a couple of weeks ago, that 65% of the folks that they polled did not agree with the defund the police movement. And I think what has happened, and you've seen it, just to take one topic that you covered there, you've seen what's happened now with crime going up in all the major cities and everything. And in fact, did you read the story about Chicago over the weekend where there were two gangs were shooting it out, and some of the gang members got killed or shot, and they were laying on the road, and the police came, and the other gang members attacked the police while they were trying to help the other wounded folks. I mean, that's how bad it's got.
It's out of control.
It is. Now, I don't know if Chicago's a lost cause, but if you read about other cities, especially Minneapolis and those places, Seattle, they're trying to get the police department funding because it's going crazy. The crime is out of control.
Well,
who would have thought if you defund the police and get less officers on the street, that crime would go up?
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought that?
Well, I'm going to put forth something that is obviously going to be controversial. Shouldn't be, but if you believe in reality and truth, there's always saying the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. You brought up a scenario, and I think that scenario could repeat itself and probably has in every big city across the country. You're having a very reticent police department,
mm-hmm.
Very hesitant to do what's necessary to apprehend violent criminals, even when it's directly affecting them. And I'll ask you this, it's just a question I want to put on the table. And I'm going to get vilified just for putting it out there for discussion. As I said, everybody, you hear the woke far left going, we need to have a very difficult discussion. Have some courage. And let's talk about the real issues in racism, law enforcement, and social economic situations, in the war in Ukraine. Let's have that difficult conversation and face the hard questions. You hear it all the time, especially from the Harvard-educated folks. I'll quote Thomas Sowell again. He says, you ever notice that in the crisis around the world, there's always a Harvard graduate in the middle of it? But nothing against Harvard, great institution. But with this situation where crime has allowed to run rampant, especially after 2020. Pretty much can go anywhere. Go into a Walgreens, take what you want, leave. Hey, you're bored one night, you watched everything on Netflix. Let's go burn a cop car. Okay, hey, let's call some buddies and let's go burn down a federal building. By the way, bring your clubs, bring your frozen water bottles and Louisville Sluggers. And if we just see somebody we don't like along the way, let's just beat the crap out of them. Let's just have some fun. That's what it is out there. There is absolutely zero concern for repercussions with this part of the community that's causing this type of crime. They're doing these social media, hey, let's get together. You've seen it. The gang storming of the grocery stores and violence. So you just gave a situation in Chicago that just happened. Let me ask this question. And I'm just going to put it in plain terms. And everybody can understand. I've already cost myself the movie career here by my attack on China, deserving. And some other positions I'm taking, so what I got to do. Are we ever going to be able to recapture the streets unless the cops start cracking some heads? If though a cop is attacked by anyone, teenagers, old people, whatever, you get attacked, you have a right to fight back. And they have, by law, the ability, if a baseball bat is used, a subject that, a object like a frozen water bottle that could kill you if it hits you in the head, you have a right to use your gun. I'm not saying do that at that point, but they got batons, they got ways, they're very well trained in physical ways to apprehend. Do you ever get control of the streets at this point?
Well, my personal
it's
opinion.
It's a tough one because
no.
you wade in there. People, you're supporting the police and going out, like Chicago in '68.
Well, I guess you can draw back, and it's a few years ago now, but I don't think the theory has changed, and that is what Rudy Giuliani did in New York.
That's a good point.
Remember back in the 90s?
Yeah, I absolutely did.
And the crime was out of control in New York, and Giuliani said, "We're stopping this." And I don't have the stats in front of me, but over the course of his tenure, you can say what you want about his other policies, and I never lived in New York, but from the history of what happened after he took over, he cleaned up the streets because he gave the police the authority to do so. Nowadays, a little bit different scenario because the police, I think, in some instances are almost, I won't say afraid, but they're gun shy of trying to do anything because of the repercussions that they would face.
So my point is,
so they just say to heck with it.
My point is that's unsustainable in a civil society.
Exactly.
Because you're going to have this violent element controlling the neighborhood. That's what the gangs do in L.A., in New York. Small number of gang members actually are violent. Other gang members, they don't commit the crime because they're afraid to. They want to be part of the gang, but they can't pull the trigger or stomp somebody to death. But it's that small group that creates a reign of terror over neighborhoods, and if you let it go, entire cities. And that's what's happening now. And they're just going to have to. The point is, eventually, that's going to happen. But are we going to wait till we're like the Weimar Republic before Hitler took over? It had become so liberal, crime was so rampant, the court system wouldn't put anybody in a jail. Sound familiar?
You have Gary on the
line. And you're having you had a person emerge because the people said we're traumatized. We can't even go down the street and buy some bread at the bakery without being mugged, without grandma being mugged. And a fellow with a little mustache comes in and says, "Okay, I got some folks in brown shirts. They're going to make your community safe. You just have to let us go." Well, they made the deal. Could you blame them?
Nope. If he could,
because you make a deal with, you let it go.
Deal with the devil.
Yes, you let crime get out of control. It never fixes itself. Crime always breeds more crime, and that's where we're heading. Are we there yet? I think we're approaching the doorstep. We're not quite there, but if we don't change directions and start backing the police and say, "Hey, you get attacked like this, you got to bring them in," and when you resist arrest, it's ugly. And when they take out the phones, doing all that, we have. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick. Well, let's go to him right now. We won't take a break because I meant to set this up a little earlier, and Bobby, we got to talking on this, which is a very important subject, obviously. And again, our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to those in Buffalo and also in here in California at the church.
Right.
Church shooting we'll talk about in just a little bit. But there was a major development here locally where Gary Bredefield, local councilman, came forward in a press conference and accused Nelson Esparza, a colleague of his on the city council, of threatening and City Attorney Sloan with extortion, and hey, if you don't just serve the four of us, that's what Gary's referred to them as a gang of four, we're going to fire you. Well, Esparza denied saying that, but Sloan came forward a couple of days ago, well, I think yesterday, and said, I did say that to Gary Bredefield, so he has been vindicated. We have Gary on the line right now. Gary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, thanks for calling in, Gary. I just left Gary a message this morning. We're just thankful that you call in. What's your feelings on that? I know you knew all along what you were saying is the truth, but there was some question in our conversation, I believe it was Friday, as to whether Sloan would come forward and confirm it. He did. What's your thoughts?
Well, it was very courageous of City Attorney Sloan to obviously speak the truth. And, as you know, Alan, I've been calling out this corruption, whether it's credit cards and using them as personal slush funds or buying masks from one vendor for reasons that I think were all related to Saria's fiance, Terrence Frazier, or a whole host of things. And this was just the most egregious, the worst kind of thing where you have a council member extorting, and it is extorting. It's California Penal Code 518, and telling him basically you're now going to work for the council majority, the Gang of Four, and if you don't, I'm the thing that stands between you and them from getting fired. And that needed to be called out. I was certainly going to do it, but I wanted to wait until his position was secure with Santa Monica, and then I let the public know because they have every right to know. And it really is important now that the district attorney's public integrity unit investigate this, that there be a real serious look at this, and that if it's true and charges are filed, Spars at the very minimum ought to resign, and charges ought to be held, and he should be held accountable.
Now, excuse me. So you feel that there will be follow-up on this? Excuse me. Sorry.
That's my hope. If not, then these kinds of actions, they continue to get away with it, and there needs to be accountability. If Esparza said what Sloan said and what he told me, that's extortion, and he should be held accountable. We should not turn the blind eye to this.
Well, Sloan, in his comments, I read, said that, excuse me, folks, I'm sorry, that he understands it's going to be a he said situation. I know you're not an attorney, Gary, but do you feel when this is looked at that the DA or the folks that are going to be asked to investigate will look at this and say, do we feel there's the potentiality of ever getting more evidence? Obviously, there wasn't a recording or anything. Do you think, just your gut feeling, and then I'd like to ask you the second question is, where does the mayor stand on this? And if, do you think there's enough there to get an investigation?
Well, absolutely. First of all, City Attorney Sloan is a very, very credible person. Very credible. There is no reason for him to make up what he said Esparza said to him. Absolutely not. The man is leaving to go to Santa Monica to be their city attorney. He has a stellar record. Everybody respects him, and there's simply no reason to do that. So, number one, he's a victim. Number two, he's reported it, and you don't have to have a recording for this to occur. And there are many crimes that take place without video evidence, audio evidence, and there are convictions. So the bottom line is, I do believe there's enough for charges to be filed if, after their investigation, they find this to be true and credible. And as far as the mayor this past week, called for an investigation. He recognizes, too, the very serious nature of all of this, and he called on the district attorney's office to investigate this, because he, too, also knows that Mr. Sloan is highly credible. I will tell you who's not, and that's Nelson Esparza and the corrupt Gang of Four. They're not very credible.
Well, it just seems, just observing so far, and it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. I've got a gut feeling that there will be, especially with the mayor weighing in, and as you just said, it's not any Tom, Dick, or Harry making these charges. It's a very reputable individual that Santa Monica thought so much of that they're willing to pay him $100,000 more to come there, and they did their due diligence on his background check. He has no other history that I know of being involved in any kind of controversy of this nature. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Sad for Fresno, but dadgummit, when you have things of this nature, Gary, it just seems like, I get accused, you're taking this side. That no, I'm just being logical. And I think folks out there would understand this. When you have this type of thing, which is so egregious, you're saying, hey, I mean, the charge being, and Nelson Esparza is innocent until proven guilty. I'm all for that. But because of the nature of it and all the implications, Gary and Bullet, it just seems like you have to have some kind of investigation because people in Fresno here are you're going to wonder. They're going to keep wondering with every decision it's made.
I think it's incumbent as public servants. There is an obligation. If there's an allegation made to this degree, and this
is heavy duty stuff,
is serious stuff, there's an obligation for the city to undertake an investigation and get to the bottom of this thing. I mean, I'm a citizen. I demand it be done. You have to get to the bottom of this thing and find out what's going on because, as you say, there are a lot of other ramifications in this thing. So it's almost incumbent upon the city, if these allegations are raised and these suspicions are raised, that they do perform an in-depth investigation to get to the bottom of it.
Gary, let me ask you once, and I'll let you go. And I appreciate you calling in and being so gracious with your time. But at this point, what do you think an investigation would look like? Would it involve the DA? Would it be an internal investigation first for the city itself?
No,
Do we have the capability?
It would involve the district attorney. They have a public integrity unit. It's for these kinds of things. And Alan, let me just put into context what this would have meant. If Doug Sloan was not the person of integrity that he is, if he felt threatened and succumbed to the threat, imagine, I don't think I can overstate the damage that would have been done. 240,000 constituents, through their duly elected representatives, me, Carbasi, and Chavez, would not have had legal representation. The corrupt gang of four would have been able to manipulate the city attorney to give them the kind of legal opinions they wanted to move the city the way they wanted to, regardless of what he personally thought was the right thing. I mean, the damage that could have been done if Mr. Sloan had succumbed to this extortion attempt is insurmountable. And so it's very, very serious, and it needs to be thoroughly investigated. And if it's true, and I believe it is, Mr. Esparza should be held accountable, totally accountable.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. It was a one-on-one conversation, and the way, I mean, and again, Nelson Esparza, he's innocent until proven guilty, but with Sloan's comment, I mean, it's so unequivocal and unambiguous. He said, the quote was, Esparza purportedly said through Sloan, "Look, I'm going to cut to the chase. You either report to us the four or you're going to get fired." That's that. There's no, gray area in the words
wiggle
there.
room in there.
You're like it's not like Bill Clinton says, "Well, what is." Let me clarify that.
Not open to
that statement. Or that's not what I meant by that exactly. There's not really a spin there, is there, Gary? I mean, there's no way to spin out of that.
No, he was emboldened enough to basically tell him, "Look, I'm going to cut to the chase. You're going to work for us. You're going to report to us when the other three that you're not going to be working for want something." He asked, "Where's Luis on this?" Meaning Chavez. He said, whatever the words were, it doesn't matter. And he basically told him, this is where it's going to be. And remember, Alan, this was the day after we had a closed session on his performance and potential salary increase. So the very next day, he and Sloan are in his office, and he's laying that out for him. So you got to have that context, too.
Oh, boy. Well, I tell you, it's going to be interesting, sad. Speaking from a former mayor standpoint, for people who, are kind of masochist in terms of government, I think they may find it interesting, great political theater. For me, former mayor, it's just sad as hell to see this happen to the city, and we're going to be watching it and following it. And but I tell you one thing: the sooner it's done, the truth, or at least to the best degree, truth can be ascertained in this thing and behind us, the better. Gary, you're always, appreciate you calling in. And again, I've got to say this, and I get in trouble for saying it, but I give credit where credit's due. I have no other, I can't operate any other way other than say, look, Gary had the courage to come forward with this. He felt strongly about this. He loves the city. He loves, Fresno. I know the man very well, and Esparza. Nothing against Esparza, but this is something that's very, very big. It's huge. The ramifications, as Bullet Bob said, are just enormous. And Gary, you had the courage to come forward, man, and I commend you for that.
Gary, as a resident in your district.
Well, I appreciate it, Alan.
Thank you very much.
You and I know each other. You and I know each other very well, and I take this kind of evil very seriously, and I take my representing citizens very seriously, and I'm not going to tolerate any of this nonsense. Not at all, and I'm going to call it out where it is, and it needs to change. The culture, and frankly, the corruption taking place needs to come to an end, and the district attorney has a role in this. She must investigate this, her department must investigate this, and anything else that comes up must be investigated. This city hall has got to get cleaned up.
Well, thank you, Gary, for calling in. Appreciate it. And this show is open. Nelson Esparza, if he's listening, he's welcome on this show to give his side of the story. Anybody on the city council is invited here anytime. Please have the courage to come forth. I mean, if these are heavy duty charges, and Bob, I don't think Gary heard you. I think he thought it was me. Gary, Bullet Bob's in your district. He'd like to tell you something. Yeah,
Gary, as a resident in your district, I just really thank you for doing what you're doing and bringing this to light. It's very important that this come forward, obviously, but I just wanted to thank you personally for that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And believe me, a lot of people tell me that they appreciate this. They know it's tough. I mean, it is tough to do this. I'm standing there by myself, but I don't care. As I said, there's no backing up for me. I'm just moving forward, and we're gonna expose this stuff, and hopefully it gets cleaned up. And I really hope the district attorney's office really does what they need to do to clean this up. And I believe they will.
All right, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for calling in, buddy. We're going to take a quick break right now. And when we come back, we have Lane on the line from Alabama with some surprise info. She's one of our favorite listeners. You're all our favorite listeners. Laura, great to see. And boy, I told you, the boys love that popcorn. You are something special. And Lane, when we come back, hang on there. We'll get to you. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat with Bullet Bob Leone. We'll be right back. Facebook folks, I tell you, on radio or TV programs, something like this happens, people just lick their chops because it's juicy. It's who's gonna, who's telling the truth. You have your little local drama. But again, and I'd probably be the same way if I wasn't so closely connected, Bullet. But having Mayor, you want these people focusing on, how to make the city better, how to keep the streets safe, number one, how to get businesses come in, how do you rebuild your neighborhoods that have been left behind, how do you just work together, come together, work together, stay together, and hash out your differences and remember who you're working for, the people.
Yeah.
And it's tough when things like this happen because it takes all the energy out of it.
It's distracting, and exactly they're not focused on all of the things you just mentioned. The for the betterment of the city.
Yeah.
In every area,
What's the city council doing? Out there fighting again.
Yeah,
the mayor and the council going at it.
They're infighting.
And I just broke an axle on that pothole.
They don't have time to deal with the issues of the city. They're too busy dealing with each other.
Exactly.
So.
Oh, you got to laugh through the tears, folks. You got to laugh through the tears. Hey, how's the baby formula shortage? Or you know anybody that's being affected by that?
No.
Yeah, here in Fresno, I don't think
so.
Baby
I see Nancy Pelosi had something to say about it, but I didn't read what she said.
Who's the one that said, why don't they breastfeed? Well, it was Bette Midler. Why are they complaining about formula?
Birthing people?
Yeah, well, I mean,
did you see that Calvin Klein ad? Did you see that Calvin Klein ad?
I don't know. Tell me.
The one with the pregnant guy?
No, Robert.
Well, did you see that, Jeremy? Jeremy's shaking his head.
No, he didn't see
He's
it either.
appalled. I even brought it up.
No, was it a joke? Was it like a Saturday Night Live skit thing? What?
No, it was something I saw. I can't even remember where it was now, but they showed 3 different advertising billboards of Calvin Klein over the years, from like 1975 and 1990 something, and then 2022 it showed a girl with a pregnant guy. Well, it looked like a guy. That's what I think the irony of the whole thing was, because they're woke enough to want to stay in.
When I
in
first
step.
heard this, I thought it was a joke, but it's not. The sheer insanity of this, that a man could get pregnant, or you could implant the plumbing inside of a man that would allow the man who is not the man anymore. You're not the man. You transition, so you say the man. No, you're saying that the man with the plumbing that they have. When you say a man is a birthing person, they keep the.
Where are you going to go with this?
Well, I mean, you're saying that with the plumbing that I have, I could carry a child. Where am I going to carry a child?
That is
30 seconds?
Affirmative. No.
No, send me
No
one.
way. Serious. Oh my word. See, I'm not the only one that knows this stuff. Jose's on top of this stuff.
This
10 seconds?
This stuff doesn't happen in Sparta. We don't.
Paca.
We don't allow it in Sparta, Mississippi. Can you imagine a storyline on the evening? Yeah.
This group
You're
will never
listening
make
to
it in
the Alan
America.
Autry Show on the
flash
best
in the
talk
pan.
in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to the show. I'm telling you, we got to. Well, the social media folks get to see it and hear it during the breaks. You radio folks you're much more fortunate than they are. You don't have to sit through it. We're talking about birthing, that men getting. When I first heard that there was actually a segment in society, it would be hard to believe one person could be that mentally blown that they could think. I mean, you got to be on everything from lithium, Abilify, whatever, man. That's some serious mental illness to think that a man could carry a child. But
Some good drugs.
There's that many. There's a movement out there that are trying to get us as a society to believe that is possible. Yeah. Where would I carry a child? What? Seriously, what part of my plumbing would be capable? My belly? How are you going to do the act to get the impregnation? It is so freaking. Do I have like I'm part kangaroo? I got a little pouch there. My little guy looks like me is going to stick his head out. Going, I didn't even know I was pregnant. I should have taken the test. What would a pregnancy test for a guy look like? How would you?
Why are you asking me that? I don't know.
Because I'm tired. It was amusing to begin with. I just didn't think the silliness would stay around this long.
No, it's
Jose
serious.
just walked in there and said you can send an emoji that if you Google pregnancy, there's male and female that come up, and pictures of men. Well, that's been photoshopped.
Well,
There ain't no. You show me any maternity ward in this country that said, "Hey, we have the first one. The man has just delivered the first child." You show me that.
Is that an ugly baby? Too?
We got news. LeBron James was just named Most Valuable Player and just delivered his first
Mother
child.
of the year.
His Mother of the Year. We're called the Mother of the Year. All right, let's just. I mean, really, this is just craziness. And our kids have to decipher through this stuff. And
Let's
go to Lane from Alabama. Lane,
Bail
how
us
you
out,
doing?
Lane.
Bail us.
I am doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm just pregnant.
How
are you? It was a surprise to all of us.
CNA, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, at this late age, it was a surprise. I felt like Sarah in the Bible.
Oh my word!
I was going around lamenting that I would never have a child, and here I am.
Lo and behold.
Oh my! Oh, I'm with the child. What's on your mind? You said you got a surprise for us.
I do. My son is at home, and he wants to say hello.
Well, I want to hear him. What was his name again?
Alan.
That's right. And of course,
How
I'll
soon
forget
they
that.
forget?
Oh no, here he is.
Hey.
Hello.
Alan. How you doing, son?
Pretty good. How are you?
Well, I'm better than I deserve. Now that I'm talking to you, how's it feel to be back home?
It feels good, man. I got to tell you, been a rough 6 months.
Yeah.
But, good Lord guided me through it and everything. And I went to rehab, got that over with. Hit my 6-month sobriety mark not this last Saturday, but the Saturday before last. And
Well, I tell you,
grace of God, I'm
There you go.
here,
well, I tell you, that's you know, it's makes me feel so good and optimistic, not having known you personally, but knowing you now. And there's a, when you mention God, because this thing that you're going up against, it was bigger than me. I struggled 8 years with addiction in Hollywood. Never went to a rehab, should have. Was ready to go till the good Lord delivered me from that. If I would have, that wouldn't have worked. I would have been in rehab in a second, but he delivered me. And addiction is something that's not a character flaw. It's a spiritual battle. And when you realize you can't do it alone, that you need God there with you, then you bring in the power that can defeat it. And that's what you've done. And you got 6 months under your belt. That's no small thing, Alan. I tell you, you get 6 months, and I'll never forget when I celebrated that 1 year mark. And my uncle told me, my Uncle Tony, who had went through addiction for 25 years, he was one of those guys that gave you the truth.
I remember Tony.
And Tony, he says, how long now? How long you been sober? And I said, a year. And he says, well, if you go back now, it's your own damn fault. And I knew what he meant there is, the first month you're really vulnerable. You go in there, most people try to do what you did, and they falter. They relapse. And, when you get that 6 months, that's a real testament to you and the decisions that you've made. And that's to let the good Lord lead you. So I know you got a mama that loves you. Tell you that.
Yeah. Pardon my language when I say this, much hell as I've put her and my daddy both through, I wouldn't believe how grateful I am, to have two parents like them. They've put up with a lot of my bull crap over the last few years. I've been pretty much, out there running wild since I was a teenager. So this last time, November last year, on November 7th, I gave up. I was sitting out with a friend of mine in the middle of nowhere, and then next thing you know, I've got cops rolling up on me, and that was, the night that, like I've told a few people, I didn't hit my rock bottom. My rock bottom hit me because I've hit rock bottom a few times, and of course, me being a stubborn head, I'd go grab a jackhammer and see how deeper I could dig on it.
Yeah, I know that. I know it well. I hit rock bottom and skidded for about 100 miles. Yeah, it's your story sounds so familiar because when I had my epiphany, when the good Lord moved in my life, I was living there with my mother. Had a little daughter with me, and that's where a lot of us go when the whole world falls apart. And
Mama.
I remember when I got up from my knees there at the slough where I asked the Lord to deliver me. When I was walking back, Alan, I remember one of the things I just kept repeating to myself. I said, Lord, please let my mom live long enough for me to make it up to her for all the heartache that I've caused her. And I know that feeling. And the thing is, let me just encourage you that what you're feeling is a conviction of some bad stuff, conviction of some sin. There's a big difference between conviction and guilt. Conviction comes from God. The devil wants you, your enemy of your soul wants to keep you in a prison of guilt. It's saying that you're never going to make it. Oh, you'll never know. You won't not only not get the forgiveness, you don't deserve the forgiveness. That's all from the devil. So don't listen to that, because there's going to be times, he's going to come at you 110% now. The enemy wants you back, but so don't confuse those two. You want to remember that last drunk. I don't ever want to forget that last night, because I don't ever want to go back there. And I'm convicted of that, but I'm not living in that prison of guilt. God has freed me from that. You understand what I'm saying there? Okay. Yeah, that's really important, because the battle's not over.
Every day.
We had a guy give a testimony yesterday at church, and he told me, when when he finally, did surrender and he went to rehab and everything, he wanted to, get as far away from his hometown as possible because, going back to that old playground.
Right.
Of course, I did. I was pretty close to home, this rehab that I went to. I was just pretty much just about an hour drive down the road. But now that I've got home, like you say, the devil's, still sitting there at the door barking at me. I had people already, since they found out I was home. Hey, man, hang out and all that.
Yeah.
I haven't told them. I don't. I still, I hope y'all the best there, but I need y'all in my life, I know it's just going to lead me right back down that road, getting back out there on that playground again. And I'm done with that playground. I'm 6 years old now. I'm saying I'm 6 months sober. I never imagined when I was 20 that I'd ever be saying that. At that point, I'd done caught a felony, prison, and everything else, and it really didn't sink into me until last time. And I look back at myself 6 months ago and like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I tell you, Alan, you're on your way, son. God has amazing things ahead for you. And just stay the course. Make sure you get yourself into a Bible-based church. You start, make sure you stay around those people that are a good influence for you. And just know, there's a verse of the Bible, and Bobby, you may know, Paul talks about putting on the full armor of God. Yep. We here out in Fresno, any place you look at the weather. What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? It's going to be rainy. Well, we make sure we got our umbrella. It's going to rain heavy, and we got a coat. It's going to be cold. So we prepare ourselves for the weather that's going to hit us. But so often we don't prepare ourselves for the attacks of the devil. And that's what Paul's talking about when he talks about putting on the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness. Gird your belt with the belt of truth. Shod your feet with the gospel of peace. And he's saying, look, the devil's coming at you every day. So you got to be prepared. You got to be prayed up. You got to make sure that you say your prayers before you go out. You stay constant in prayer because he's out to get you. And if you put the beautiful thing about it, the exciting thing is God says you do that, and that enemy's defeated. He can't get to you. You put on that full armor of God, and that's what you're doing when you say no to these guys that call up. Pray for them, because they're probably good people caught up in really bad things, just like you are. Pray for them. Read your Bible. Go to church, and you do that. I'm going to be talking to you here down the line, and you're going to be talking about being 5, 6, 7, 10 years sober and all the wonderful things that God has brought into your life. So just know that's ahead of you. All right?
Oh, yeah. Sir, I can't wait for it, too, because, I can wait, but...
I hear you. No, I hear you.
You're on your way, buddy.
You're on your way.
Yep.
Alan, God bless you. I tell you, check in with me every now and then. Okay?
Yes, sir. I sure will. I sure do appreciate it, man. It's been an honor to talk to you.
Well, let me tell you something. There's people, I can almost guarantee you, I know how God works, but I also know statistically, the data would say, somebody somewhere listened to what you just said, either social media or radio, and they're going through the same thing you're going through, or someone has a son or a daughter going through that. And you just gave them strength to keep going. You may have, I think they may have it. You absolutely have helped somebody make that decision to do what you've done, to get off that path of drug addiction, to seek help for the first time and really mean it, to really want to go in and really want to have their life transformed and save their life, because it's a matter of life and death. So you just did a great service by having the courage to come on this radio show and this social media show and share truthfully your journey. And that's what it's all about, because first God works in you in order to work through you. Does that make sense? He's working in you to get you freed from this prison of addiction so he can work through you to help others. And that's just what you did today. You let God work through you. That's an awesome thing, son, that you just did. And that should get, if that doesn't get your fire burning, your wood's wet. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the good things you do right now. You know, as you get ready, you find a job, you start getting back to your life. You've already had, you know, your purpose that you were designed for. You did it today. I mean, that's an awesome thing. All right, Alan, God bless you. They said keep checking in. I'll make sure Lane tracks you down if you don't check in here every once in a while. All right.
All righty.
All right.
All right, man. You have a good one.
All right.
God bless
Bye-bye.
you.
All right.
God bless you.
See ya.
Man, that was a good call. Man, Alan, Lane.
That's good news.
That is
That's good
wonderful.
news.
That is just, especially all the stuff we've been talking
That's
about.
what I'm
To hear
saying.
that,
Yeah.
he sounds like a level-headed young man.
Yeah. Well, he's got a good mama, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
sure. Oh,
She
sure.
loves that boy.
You know, people look at folks that get involved in drugs, so many people that are judgmental, that they had never had that issue, and they think it's a character. And it's not a character flaw. Anybody who tries it for whatever reasons, out of curiosity, somebody says, you know, hey, take this drug here, take this shot of whiskey, or snort this line of cocaine, and smoke this joint. It'll help you forget what you're going through. And you try it, and your body gets hooked on it. It doesn't have to do whether a good person or not. It's going to get you.
No,
It's
we've lost some friends to
Absolutely.
drugs.
And so that's and so many, I think, people that go through that journey buy into that. Well, I'm just a weak person. I'm something wrong with me. That's why I got involved in drugs. Well, yeah, everybody has, for whatever reason, you decided to dabble, and they've proven that certain people are susceptible to addiction. It certainly runs in my family. Grandpa was that, his dad was, basically on both sides of it. So when I decided to take that first shot of whiskey, man, my body just was saying, okay, what took you so long?
It's like Hank Jr. said, it's a family tradition.
It was a family tradition. But anyway,
Not a good one either.
Not a good one. Not a good one. But boy, it was a good phone call, though.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Awesome. Good
Yeah.
to hear from him.
All right. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in. We're running down the old clock. Only 30 seconds to go here on Manic Monday. And, boy, what a great way to end the show.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Alan,
was a great
you
story.
hang in there, and all the families out there that have someone struggling with addiction, don't give up. Keep praying, because there's nothing God can't do. You can't get down so far that God can't lift you up. You just cry out for him. God bless you. Just do your best and let God do the rest, and we'll see you on Taco Tuesday. Oh, you good job, brother.